Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Helene Florio, and I'm president of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association. And tonight, together with Andréa Marion, who is the new executive director of the Greater Holyoke Chamber of Commerce, we welcome you to this evening's debate. Handling the filming this evening is Scott McPherson of Holyoke Media. The three candidates are in alpha order: David Bartley, Patrick Beaudry, and Patricia Duffy. Each seeks the position of state representative for the 5th Hampden district, which is all of Holyoke. The three have participated in a debate already, which featured questions from agencies involved directly in human service issues. If you missed it, that debate tape is now up on Facebook on the Holyoke Media site. Tonight's debate will touch on a number of other issues which have great effect on the city of Holyoke. The questions for tonight's debate have been put together by the boards of directors of both the sponsors, Holyoke Taxpayers Association and the Greater Holyoke Chamber of Commerce. Let me first start by introducing you to Andréa Marion, the new executive director of the Greater Holyoke Chamber of Commerce. Andréa, will you please start and introduce the candidates?
Thanks, Helene. So tonight we have with us David Bartley, Pat Beaudry, and Pat Duffy, all running for state rep seat. I'd like to get things started first by saying thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with all of you tonight. And I'd like to take this opportunity to have the candidates, starting in alphabetical order with David Bartley, taking 3 minutes to introduce themselves and letting the public know why they believe that they are the best candidate for this position. So, David, if you'd like to go.
I'd be happy to. Thank you very much for putting this together, and thanks for all the work you did in getting this organized. So this will be an opportunity for me to first and foremost to say thank you. I want to thank all those who, especially my team right now that's supported my campaign, the contributors, the hard workers, the people that put up the 200 plus lawn signs, and it really means a lot. I haven't been able to thank all of you personally, but I want to take the opportunity now, whether you're watching at home during your supper or at a future time when it's on tape, when it's recorded, and really means a lot. I also want to thank my mom and dad for pretty well inspiring me to run for public office. Of course, as some of you might know, my father was had this seat from 1962 to 1975, and he rose to be majority leader. Then he was Speaker of the House from 69 to 75. So there's a bit of a tradition of public service in my family, and I think I've done a small part in trying to carry on the tradition in the Holyoke City Council. Let me just give a little brief bio and then a little work history, and then to tell you why I'm running. So brief bio, I'm a full-time practicing attorney. I went to law school later in life. I went to night school at Winnick, now WinU, and so all during this pandemic, I've been working full-time on my law practice, helping my clients, as well as being a city councilor, which, by the way, is not a part-time gig, and then also campaigning and also helping out with helping my mother and father as well with their travails. So it's been a lot, but it's been invigorating and a lot of fun. Before that, I worked for 18 years for the Office of State Auditor under Joe DiNucci and Suzanne Bump. Learned a lot about government. Learned a lot of good things. Learned a lot of peculiar things about especially public financing. My background in education is not only do I have a JD, I have a master's degree from UMass Amherst. I have a bachelor's degree from UMass Amherst. I said before, I tell you in all sincerity, I don't even think I could get accepted to UMass Amherst nowadays because it's so competitive. And as my efforts in high school and in Mount Hermon afterwards were okay, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity and education. Education is obviously critical to me. So the last 10 years, I've been a city councilor in Holyoke, It's been an honor. I love serving. I love public service. As it turns out, I'm pretty good at it, and I want to continue to serve. So I look forward to having a good discussion tonight. I look forward to hearing the questions and asking my honorable colleagues a couple of questions each. And thank you for your attention and time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andréa?
So next we'll have Patrick Beaudry go.
Thank you, Andréa. My name is Patrick Beaudry. I'm 33 years old, and this is my first time running for public office. I'm a proud alumnus of the Holyoke Public School District, and this week marks my 2-year anniversary of home ownership in the Oakdale neighborhood, the same neighborhood just blocks away from where my mom grew up with my uncles in the house that my grandparents bought after World War II. After graduating Holyoke High School, I moved out east to Boston, where I earned a bachelor's degree in government from Suffolk University before landing my first job in politics for Senator Sonia Chang Diaz, who is the first Latina state senator in Massachusetts history. After some time working for her as her scheduler, I had the opportunity to jump from the Senate to the House and serve Michael Caine, Representative Vega's predecessor, where I worked on budget and policy priorities, as well as local economic development endeavors and plenty of constituent casework. I jumped over to the campaign side of Democratic politics for a number of years after that. I was proud to contribute to efforts like sending Elizabeth Warren to the United States Senate in 2012. But it's 4 years ago when I took a job at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission as the manager of public affairs, where I really felt like I gained the experience and the knowledge to step up and lead in this role, the state representative role today. There, I managed policy, public engagement, and press, working on transportation, community development, land use, and environmental protection, all while earning a master's degree in public administration from UMass Boston at night and on weekends. I've said this before, but it bears repeating. My two opponents are good people. They bring nothing but good intentions to this race and their own unique perspectives and experiences. Councilor Bartley has some hardcore supporters who are only voting for their boy Bart when he's on the ballot. Likewise, Ms. Duffy also has gained many very good friendships in her time here in Holyoke. And I know because I've tried to peel off support from both of you over the course of the last 6 months, and in a lot of cases, nothing doing. One thing I want to say is Councilor Bartley's supporters tell me that they would never vote for Pat Duffy, but they could live with me being elected. Likewise, Ms. Duffy's supporters have some serious concerns about the vision that Councilor Bartley brings to this race, but they could also live with me being in this race. And so what I offer the people of Holyoke is an opportunity to elect a unity candidate, someone who boasts his own strong base of support, but also offers both camps of my esteemed opponents here, a candidate and a state representative that they could live with and believe they can work with. And so I believe that in this moment in our city's history, I'm the pragmatic problem solver that this moment requires. And I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
And so next we'll have Pat Duffy.
Thank you. Thank you to the chamber. Thank you to the Holyoke taxpayers. Thank you to Helene and Andréa for putting this forum together and giving Holyoke voters the chance to get to know all three of us. And I agree, it's been a good, positive experience campaigning, and I commend both of my competitors on the ballot for that. I want to take this opportunity to talk about some of the groups and individuals who are supporting me. We're all proud of our supporters, but some of the public endorsements I've gotten, because I'm not an incumbent, I don't have a voting record to talk about. So I feel that the list of groups who are supporting me is my track record that the voters of Holyoke can take a look at. So I've been endorsed by the Mass Teachers Association. I've been endorsed by both the Mass Nurses and the Direct Healthcare Workers of SEIU 1199. I've been endorsed by SEIU 509 and also the Carpenters Local 336. what is, besides the fact that I'm proud of that support and the friendships and working relationships they represent, what's also important about those is that all of those folks are essential workers. They've been working out on the front lines throughout this crisis, throughout this pandemic, and I and all of us should be looking to them for guidance on reopening workplaces and restarting our economy safely. I also want to talk about some individuals who are supporting me because, as has been discussed, the elected officials of Holyoke, we don't represent the diversity of the population of this great city. This city, it's 50% Latinx, and most of us, including the next state rep, are white. It's going to be a top priority of mine to address that diversity, build on relationships that I have, to support, however I'm asked, anyone who wants to join the elected class of officials and especially diversify it. And there are 3 endorsements that really speak to that, my track record and my sincerity there. Gladys LeBron Martinez, Libby Hernandez, and Juan Anderson Burgos are 3 Puerto Rican city councilors. I'm really proud of their support, and it reflects years of friendship and work together. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion, and I will also throw in there that I have been endorsed by the man who knows the job, knows the city, and knows me, the current state rep, Aaron Vega. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. All very interesting information. I'm going to start now with the first question, and it's interesting that this came in from almost everybody that was involved in any of the question gathering that we did. And so I will ask it, and then we'll go with Mr. Bartley first. What do you propose to do to prevent a recurrence of the horrific issues that recently beset the Holyoke Soldiers' Home? And how would you propose to change the culture?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that question. So I think, Helene, it's 90 seconds per answer, right? So I don't know if you know.
Yes, it is. It's 90 seconds. I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's a national tragedy. What's happened there, 76. That's for our beloved veterans, our beloved seniors who are, and it hits a little bit harder here in Holyoke, doesn't it? Especially thinking how the home is technically located in Ward 3, the ward I've had the good fortune to represent for now my 5th term. And I think if you look at what's happening with the Soldiers' Home, it often comes down to management, and it comes down to dollars. And the question, Helene, remains thus: why is it that the Holyoke Soldiers' Home, with a fraction of the population of the Chelsea Soldiers' Home, actually double the Chelsea Soldiers' Home, receives but a fraction of the budget compared to Chelsea? That's a question mark of leadership and paying attention in the State House, which I'm going to suggest to you is sorely lacking. So if somebody can tell me why the current incumbent has voted for budget after budget after budget, knowing that Chelsea, with a fraction of the population, receives $6 million more per year than the Soldiers' Home, that's an unsolved mystery, and that's something I'm going to help prevent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the same to you, Mr. Beaudry. Would you like the question repeated, or are you fine?
I think I got it. Thank you, Helene. Listen, I don't think that I need to recap what a great tragedy it is, and how we failed, and what a breach of trust it was for our veterans. We are seeing our Vietnam era veterans age into the Soldiers' Home, and they're going to need those services. And this country has for decades failed that generation of warriors who put it all on the line, and came home to less than a hero's welcome. So I am all in favor of a renovation of that building. I'm pleased to see that there is an accelerated 12-week assessment of what we can do, but just understanding that these folks who put their whole lives on the line were bunked up, sharing bathrooms. I mean, it's not just the fact that it's hard to contain an infectious outbreak when one occurs. It's just a lack of dignity and respect for the reason that we are providing this housing and this care for them. And so renovation first. I do hold state government accountable for what happened all the way up to Governor Baker. I'm going to let the investigations continue to play out to understand exactly how it is, the personnel that were put on the field to handle the home in good times and in bad. We're able to make such poor decisions without the state stepping in and making sure that our veterans' well-being was being looked out for. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Pat Duffy.
So yeah, an unspeakable breach of trust, and we're all on the same page there. As the investigations play out, any legislative suggestions, any policy changes that are recommended, that will be my first order of business if I'm elected and sworn in January. The legislative investigation is just beginning, and I will be serving as staff for that. So there are specific failures that we're already learning about in the home that we all know about. And yes, I think the superintendent, Secretary Arena, and indeed Mary Lou Sutters and Governor Baker all bear responsibility. So there are specific failures that we need to look at. We also need to step back and look at systemic failures. We, as a society, do not pay the folks who do really important direct care, healthcare work, who care for our most valuable population, be they veterans, our seniors in general, our children. And those staff had serious concerns and they did not feel safe coming forward. So we've got to address that as a systemic failure as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Andréa.
So next question for you guys. How would you work with the city to market and attract more business and ultimately tax revenues to our city? And this question will start with Pat Beaudry.
Sure. So I think that a huge challenge for us as we seek to redevelop the downtown is that we are working with a downtown that was built for 60,000 people with 40,000 people, many of whom are in greater poverty than in our heyday when much of our great architecture and our commercial district was built out. We need to pick our spots. We need to think in terms of place and in terms of people, and work our way out from a block to a neighborhood, to the entire downtown. I think that we continue to hear out of the business community that they need help working their way through the permitting process, working their way through technical difficulties. I commend E4All for seeking to foster entrepreneurship in the city, but entrepreneurship's a low percentage play. And so I really think as state representative, part of what I want to do is not only make sure that people who are looking to start businesses feel like they're welcome and they're able to navigate City Hall and the permitting process, but really work with existing businesses to understand what do they need from state government, what do they need. And I really believe that by transforming our state revenue system, we can collect more revenue from corporations and individuals who are doing well even during COVID, while providing relief for individuals and private firms that need that that relief during these hard times. Keep these doors open and keep our people hired.
Very good.
Thank you. And next, the same question to Pat Duffy.
So the state rep needs to be your partners, the city's partners, but also your two organizations. We need to be your partners. And the beauty of the state rep job is not only are you based in Holyoke and aware of what's going on, but you spend a lot of time on Beacon Hill and get to learn about best practices all over the state and work together to form policy. the Gateway City Caucus has been mentioned often. It's a fantastic resource, especially with a research arm like Mass Inc. Attached to it. Another tool that we have in our toolbox that the state brings back is the Redevelopment Authority, which I've had the great honor of serving on for 11 years or something crazy like that, you know, which helps us be more nimble about bundling parcels of vacant land and marketing them. So yeah, making sure that we have the tools that you need and bringing you back new ideas from the State House is an important priority for the next state rep.
Thank you. And David?
Thank you. So one thing a state rep wouldn't do is tie an anchor around the property taxpayers of the city of Holyoke like the incumbent state rep attempted to do at last year's ballot box. What a disaster that would have been, as the state rep was all in on the bond vote, couldn't help us any other way except raise our taxes, and defeated by a grassroots, no committee, no money, and the ballot was 65-35. Wiped out the state rep. I don't know where the state rep's aide was in this because she didn't make a public stance, but certainly the mayor and others were all in on this. So that's what a state rep doesn't do, is to provide an anchor around the taxpayers of the city of Holyoke. What a state rep should do, and what's not being done, is pay attention, work with the leadership, find opportunities to bring business and to bring economic development into the city. Emphasize our strong suit. What is our strong suit? Our diversity is our strong suit. Our assets are Mount Tom, Mountain Park. We have tremendous assets that are lying dormant. So we've always been a tourist-generated economy. Where is that? Where is that happening? Are we working with the Springfield Convention Business Bureau? Is anybody supporting economic development coming from Boston to Holyoke? Thank God we defeated that thing, because look at what happened in Northampton, East Hampton. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Well, thank you, all three. And here's another one. And again, it's an important one. One of the largest impending problems here in Holyoke is the deteriorating infrastructure, most particularly the decaying water pipe distribution system. It's not alone, but that's one of the most obvious. What do you see as a solution that you would initiate at the state level to help with restoration of the infrastructure in Holyoke? And start off, Pat Duffy, would you answer this first?
Absolutely. So yeah, infrastructure, that's one of the biggest ways that the state rep can help out any municipality. So yeah, let's look at the funding formulas that the state rep brings back. They've been in place for years. We've already had great success revising Chapter 7D. So Chapter 9D, the funding for infrastructure, roads, bridges. There are proposals that are controversial, but that we have been working on for revising the Chapter 9D funding. Right now, it's a strict formula based on employment, highway miles, and I may be missing one more factor. So it like Chapter 7D can be revised. So that sort of investment is crucial. We've already seen that we can put plans together that inspire the administration to make huge infrastructure investments. We've seen it in South Holyoke. The Redevelopment Authority, the Housing Authority working together, putting together the development of South Holyoke homes. It's such a good plan that the administration has been inspired to invest millions of dollars in the infrastructure of South Holyoke. So it's continuing to make these smart community plans. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Bartley.
Mr. Bartley, thank you.
Bartley.
And I'm going to talk to Mr. Beaudry after this debate about stealing my votes too. I can't wait to talk about that. So Chapter 90, ladies and gentlemen, Chapter 90 has been stuck in neutral for forever at $200 million. Why can't we move that forward? The Mass Municipal Association has been attempting for years, but it's just stuck there. Do you realize Holyoke has 6 major state and federal highways that run through it? And we're pretty much a crossroads of every major road in Western Mass, with the exception of the Pike, which is a mile south of us. So Holyoke deserves, and Holyoke is a hub for transportation, and Holyoke deserves to have improved funding. I'll tell you a couple of things we have done at the local level, and which improved transportation. One is the PVTA Center, which we supported through bond initiative to get that passed, and the other one is the rail hub. So we now finally have a rail transport center. It is woefully underused, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But fingers crossed, we'll have the same U.S. congressman that we have now come in January, I hope, as the chairman of the Ways and Means. What a foolhardy election that would be to go otherwise. But he's the guy that's going to deliver the resources, and he has delivered the resources to get that built and to create and build our infrastructure. As for the water, Helene, we funded that in City Council, so the water pipes, so hopefully that'll expand.
Thank you. And Mr. Beaudry.
Helene, could you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. One of the largest impending problems here in Holyoke is the deteriorating infrastructure problem, most particularly the decaying water pipe distribution system. What do you see as a solution to that and other infrastructure issues and you would initiate at the state level to help with restoration of the system in Holyoke?
Sure. Thank you. As manager of public affairs of the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I have the good fortune of staffing the Connecticut River Cleanup Committee, which is a regional effort to secure state and federal funds to address our what's known as combined sewer overflow. Essentially, our stormwater and our sewage are combined in many cases, and what that causes is every time it rains, the snow melts, untreated sewage water gets dumped in the Connecticut River. So we started with 7 communities 25 years ago. Clearly I was not there at its beginning, but we are down to the 3 core urban communities, Springfield, Holyoke, and Chicopee. And we still have about $600 million worth of work left to do. But I'm proud that on my part, I've been able to go up to Beacon Hill and secure millions of dollars for this endeavor over the years, including securing an authorization in the most recent environmental bond bill. So what does that do? Well, for starts, it takes the weight off of local water and sewer ratepayers who those rates are not based on a person's ability to pay. It's just based on the needs of the water and sewer systems. What it also does is it ensures that the state rep and the state senator who represents Holyoke don't have to go it alone. By bringing in the numbers of state reps in Springfield and Chicopee and our corresponding senators in the upper chamber, we're able to work as a team to secure that funding. And so I'm really proud that I've been a part for the last 4 years that I've been at the Planning Commission to bring that money home through the capital budgets and through the administration.
Thank you. And Andrea.
So now we're gonna shake things up a little bit. So this is the time where we're gonna ask each of you, and again, we're gonna go back to alphabetical order, to ask a question of your 2 opponents, starting with Mr. Bartley. You have 90 seconds to answer as well.
Do you want me to pick one, or how do you want to do this?
You get to ask them both a question, so whoever you want to go first.
Oh, I'm asking both the same question.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I should have been more attentive. See, Pat, that's why I told you. I don't think I get into UMass right anymore. I think I'd have no shot. Okay, so Pat and Pat, good to see you, both of you. I guess so let's go with one of my favorite topics. Last year, the city of Holyoke was faced with a ballot question where the proponents wanted essentially a tax override for the purposes of building 2 new schools. The override, if passed, would have significantly increased property taxes for industrial, commercial, and residential owners, essentially adding a 30-year mortgage on top of our existing property taxes. This ballot question was spearheaded by the mayor and the current state rep and other elected officials. The form of financing they suggest, being a property tax increase, is the most regressive, interesting from liberal progressive that they would want to do that, most regressive form of property tax, which is a property tax. In my opinion, which I said before, we have other alternatives to sponsoring this. I'd like to know, we'll start with Pat Duffy, I guess. Pat, why don't you tell us your position on the ballot question last year, and seeing how it defeated, what kind of alternative would you suggest?
So I did vote yes. I did make a public statement, but people don't pay as much attention to the legislative aid as they do to the state rep. So I was publicly in support. I will say that I prioritize public education, and the concerns that were raised by teachers and families about the state of the school buildings greatly influenced me. I will say that campaign taught me a lot, because good friends, good colleagues who I consider my allies in prioritizing public education, some of them voted no. And it really opened my eyes to how housing insecure many people feel. So it was a tough campaign. It was divisive. We're a passionate city. We love our kids and our schools and our homes. So all respect there. I've been heartened by the fact that I see the two sides coming together. And I've been in City Hall meetings about going to the school building authority with a plan for one school, which seems much more affordable, would not require the same sort of tax override. Thank you.
Great. So I want to start by just pointing out that this campaign is about the future and not the past. And if you want to fight past battles, you should be a Civil War reenactor, not running for state rep for the future of this city. But I'm happy to talk about what went down last fall. So first of all, I went to Peck. It wasn't a good school building when I was there, and it's only deteriorated since then. And we need to think about our kids, and not only the safety of our schools, as we see violence in our schools, and we know environmental factors in our schools impact our students and our educators' health. I also think that we want to project to young families who may be considering moving to Holyoke, young families who are here who are considering leaving Holyoke, that we mean business when it comes to education. We've been in a hole for a while, and we need to get serious about turning that around. I hated the deal that came down the pike, asking a city like Holyoke to have a millions and millions of dollar bake sale for schools while we're moving into our 6-year receivership. But I'll tell you why I did support it. I supported it because I knew that the Student Opportunity Act was coming down the pike, and that was going to have enhanced tools to support school buildings, particularly in districts like Holyoke. And I also trust in the guidance and leadership at City Council, who would be able to ultimately serve as a backstop if this passed and it still didn't look like it was going to be a deal that we could handle. But I was proud to go door to door and talk to my neighbors about this and understand their concerns. And I understand as a state rep that we are maxed out in our ability to raise revenues locally. And that's why I run for state rep, because I believe what ails Holyoke needs to be addressed at the state level.
Very good. And Andréa?
All right, back to our questions.
No, it's time for Mr. Beaudry to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, now Mr. Beaudry, you're going to ask questions of your fellow opponents.
That's okay.
Great. We'll go back at Councilor Bartley then. And I know he's up for it. So Councilor, you are on the record. You want increased Chapter 70 funding for our schools, Chapter 90 funding for transportation, local aid. I share that very worthy goal. But whereas I'm on record proposing progressive income tax to tax people based on what they can afford rather than a flat tax, as well as moving progressive taxation onto corporations. So mega corporations can pay more and struggling firms and small businesses can pay less. I wonder what taxes and fees you're proposing to raise to increase those funding sources that we're on the same page about. Yeah,
so that's not a real winner for me. Is raising taxes and fees are not a real not something that I support at the state level at all at this time, in particular because the Commonwealth's rainy day fund is climbing close to $3 billion. We have tremendous bonding capacity. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to fully answer the last question from the prior round, but at City Council, because of the water infrastructure situation, especially the fire that could have been an awful tragedy on Fairfield with low water pressure, City Council has bonded to improve these century-old pipes throughout the city, and it's going to be something vital. And that's something that Commonwealth can and should consider to do, especially for priorities. So Pat, and I appreciate your advocacy because I respect both of you. I think you both know that, but I'll say it out loud. So it's about priorities, and to me, the number one priority is the City of Holyoke, and the City of Holyoke has so many needs, from education to infrastructure to economic development, that I think that the Commonwealth needs to stop putting Holyoke backpedaling. So give us a chance, especially with a natural gas pipeline capacity from 8-inch to 16-inch capacity, Patrick. It's laughable that we can't get our own mayor to support our gas and electric. He's undercut the G&E at every turn. If we can get that, we can be hopefully moving towards self-sufficiency, and we can expand economic development. That way we'll all grow and be better off. Thank you. Sorry for going over time.
Yeah, I'll ask.
Same question to me. So
no, I'm sorry, it's not the same question to you.
Okay.
I have a different question for you.
Okay.
So, Pat, on February 1st, you posted on Facebook, Holyoke already has the resources we need right now to increase access and equity. What's needed is collaboration and a sense of common purpose. Is it your position that Holyoke has the resources it needs right now? And would you not seek for increased resources moving forward?
I think that's a fair question. What I was talking about is what I've seen, especially in this pandemic, but even before that, the amazing people and organizations that are willing to pull together in any crisis. So we see it in immediate crises. For example, when we had so many folks come here from Puerto Rico after the earthquake and the Hurricane Maria, the way this city pulled together to take care of folks in that crisis. Now we have this long-lasting pandemic crisis. And what happened as soon as the schools went remote, we realized the reality that the Holyoke Public Schools actually feed a great number of our population. So the public schools, the state rep's office, Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, West Mass Elder Care, Enlace da Familia, One Holyoke, everybody got together to make sure that we had the resources, no one was falling through the safety net. That's what I was talking about. So that's why I'm optimistic.
Thank you. Now, Pat Duffy, it's your turn to ask your opponents a question.
All right. Who gets to go first? I will actually, Mr. Beaudry. I will ask, you've written on social media, you wrote that you're clearly not the establishment's pick in this race. So would you care to elaborate? Like who is this establishment?
I'm happy to. Earlier in this debate, you said that you're not the incumbent, but you've been running as the incumbent and you've been enjoying the benefits of running as an incumbent from the get-go, having the insider knowledge of when the rep was going to announce he was out so you can consolidate support, leaning on local unions so you can get their support, and progressive groups while legislation is still pending that Aaron can vote on. I think that it's very clear that you've been able to use your position as the legislative aide to secure a number of benefits that were not available to me or Councilor Bartley. So I actually believe it's you.
Patricia, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Mr. Bartley. At last week's forum, you referenced a plan to take revenue designated for school funding and set up a trust for school buildings. So if that can even be allowed, what would you cut from our educational programming to set aside for these funds?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I was looking forward to a chance to elaborate on this. So I take it you're familiar with the term net school funding. Well, if you're not, that's okay too. But it's a creature of the state government. And what the city of Holyoke taxpayers do, property taxpayers, it sends about $10 million from the property tax directly to the public schools. As you're probably aware, the rest of the public schools, 90% of the budget is federal and state dollars. A very small fraction is the property tax, the most regressive tax, the tax that you wanted to increase last year to build 2 new school buildings, the most regressive tax that there is. So what I propose, and this is me having conversation with other civic leaders. This isn't something I dreamt up, but I fully support it. There's $10 million that go from the property taxpayers to the public schools. Now with the Student Opportunity Act, we have a chance to divert a portion of those funds to put in a trust, to be held in the trust by the city treasurer, the duly elected city treasurer, until such time as it builds up to whatever amount we need so that we can properly get our 80% reimbursement from the bonding authority, which by the way was 57% last year, Pat. We were up to 50.7% as opposed to the 80%. Let's get us the 80% now so we can build our schools and give students and teachers and administrators a forum in which they can thrive.
Thank you. So now it is back to our question.
Well, thank you. And you've thrown me a little curveball here by the discussion on the issue with the building of the 2 schools and the debt exclusion override, because we have a question which encompasses part of that. But as I'm sitting here, I think it's still going to be important to ask this question of the 3 of you. And we're back at the point we're starting with Mr. Beaudry, and then it'll be Pat Duffy and Mr. Bartley. The community spent over 2 years trying to plan for and fund the 2 much needed middle schools. During this process, it was clear there were funding inequities that were dictated by the MSBA. As our state rep, what would you do and how do you feel Holyoke could capture the 80% reimbursement that's needed to properly fund 2 middle schools? So, Pat, you're first.
Thank you. I think that my issue with the question is that it's based on the premise that the community still wants to move forward with trying to build 2 middle schools. And I think that we need to, as state rep candidates, be brave and be strong in our stances. But we also need to listen to the voters and understand their concerns, their reservations. And at the end of the day, we all need to pay for this. So we need to be on the same page. And really, as state rep, I'm hoping to build consensus around common cause that we can rally around as a community and put some wins up on the board I do not want to relitigate the battles of the past. I want to think about the future here. So I think, first of all, we heard a number of different reports over that campaign, that debate, about why it was we weren't receiving the full reimbursement. And I think we need to use that as a cheat sheet to a certain extent to understand how we can modify any proposal to ensure that we do capture it. Again, I've alluded to it already, but the Student Opportunity Act, the first educational reform bill passed since 1993, the Reform Act that dictated the funding of HPS when I attended it, was broken. And so I'm really looking forward to how the Student Opportunity Act improved how we fund urban school district buildings and projects. And I really think that we can come together as a community and understand what it is we want to do, whether it's one middle school or two. But I'll be on the same page about where our red lines are and where we're all comfortable having the money come from. Thank you.
Okay, and Pat Duffy.
Well, I've seen many indications and meetings that we have a good shot at moving forward with building one middle school and bringing that proposal to the School Building Authority. There is legislation and commissions to re-examine how the School Building Authority reimburses gateway cities for their school buildings. Sometimes there are proposals out there that are not necessarily on leadership's radar. And in order to build consensus for them, you have to build up alliances in the legislature, reach out beyond gateway cities, but include those gateway city legislators, build alliances and strategize. That's how you get things done in the legislature. So I think we can build a real alliance to examine this formula that doesn't seem to be too fair to our more vulnerable cities. And I think we're already on the path of moving forward. And I intend to be part of bringing the community together, listening, asking questions, building consensus.
Very good. And Mr. Bartley?
Yeah, Helene, I got the gist of the question, but there might have been a nuance in there. I just want you to repeat it for me. If you
okay. The community spent over 2 years trying to plan for and fund two much needed middle schools. During this process, it was clear there were funding inequities that were dictated by the MSBA. As our state rep, what would you do to help Holyoke capture the 80% reimbursement needed to properly fund middle schools?
Yeah, so I first of all, to my friend Pat, I like the line about the Civil War reenactment, but now we're going to the second time, and a vote that only happened 9 months ago. I don't think we should equate the two, but it was a good line anyhow, and I appreciate it. I always appreciate a funny line. Yeah, I think I've answered this now several times on my position, and I think I talked about how we were given in City Council by MSBA basically take it or leave it. Take the 57% or walk away. Well, fortunately, a grassroots effort, which no one to this date has written about, even our friends at that lovely paper on Main Street in Springfield hasn't even written about it. It was a group that had no backing, no committee, and it defeated every major elected official, including the state rep, including the mayor, including the city council president, etc., that all supported this. And they all fell down with a 35% group. So it's about leadership, Helene and Andréa. It's about leadership, about paying attention. It's about working with the MSBA. It's about using the idea that I suggested, among others suggestions, to take some of that net school spending, to put that in trust held by the treasurer so that we have our own funds, so we can have some kind of self-sufficiency here in Holyoke, and then we'll borrow the rest so we can get our full 80%. 57% ain't gonna cut it in Holyoke. It's unfair and unreasonable to the poorest community in the Commonwealth. Thank you, MSBA, but no thanks.
Thank you very much. And Andréa, it's your turn.
Thank you. Holyoke has recently been denoted as a Rust Belt city, being an old industrial city. What are your plans for power to keep this city going? Not only what's here now, but future development. And for this question, we'll start with Pat Duffy.
I don't know about this recent designation, but I think it probably doesn't surprise us because there have been big economic changes that have changed the fortunes of Holyoke. The large industries that were here have moved on. So I do see promise. Before this pandemic hit, we did see our population start to grow. We did see entrepreneurship. And so my plans will be to use tools available at the state. We have HDIP, the Housing Development Improvement Program, that makes it easier and more economical for developers to come into the large mill buildings we have. We have a new industry moving in, the cannabis industry, that I think is ideally suited for those large buildings. We have indoors production. It creates good jobs. We have to make sure that the social equity piece of the cannabis legalization is followed up on, and that can be great for the workforce here. So I do see promise, and it's about making sure that we use every tool that the state offers.
Thank you, Pat. And this question will go next to Councilman Bartley.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Holyoke is not a Rust Belt. You know, that's some sort of a line that probably one of the dopes that the Springfield newspapers came up with, or you picked it out of a magazine or somewhere. It's really just another slap in the face that this Holyoke is a wonderful place with wonderful people and tremendous assets. We've talked about that. I talked about that with Pat and a couple other forums. We have our strong suits. We talked about our diversity. That is a major strong suit for the city of Holyoke. We've talked about all our green space, our water power. Holyoke has more darn water. We own more of Southampton than Southampton. And we're going to buy another 15 acres in the coming months. We've got tremendous resources with hiking and recreation. But one of our greatest resources, one that, and I won't pick on the gentleman anymore, but undercutting the gas and electric. Can you imagine turning off the natural? That is what, if we have a calling card, if we have a diamond in the rough, it's a Holyoke gas and electric. And that's what was trying to be undermined by cutting up the pipeline. Never mind that silly Bar Foundation grant that we vaporized in City Council last month by a 7-6 vote. But I appreciate all the councilors that stood tall on that, and I want to thank them publicly at this point, though they all know my feelings. Let us expand the pipeline from an 8-inch pipe to a 16-inch pipe. This is not a major fossil fuel ask. We'll become self-sufficient and we'll fly forward from there. And never mind this Rust Belt nonsense. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Beaudry.
Sure. So I agree with Councilor Bartley that Holyoke Gas Electric is a huge resource for our city. It's one of the best things going for us. And that dam provides something over 60% of our electric power is from hydro. So that's great. It's a great start. And we're seeing solar continue to be built out at the former site of the Mountown coal plant down on Berkshire Street and others. We have one of the largest battery storage units on the Northeast. So we have a lot going for us and we're thinking forward. We have some immediate challenges with the gas moratorium. I mentioned earlier, I bought a house 2 years ago. It's heated with oil. It's my first oil house I've ever lived in. And I did seek to convert to gas only to find out that wasn't an option for me. And so I think a lot about our low-income residents, our folks who want to start, particularly restaurants, which is a great gateway for many immigrants and low-income residents to build wealth and do something that they know and that they can succeed in. So we're trucking in propane that's dirtier with the diesel trucks, dirtier when we burn it. So I want to be clear. I don't believe that natural gas has a long future ahead. And so what we really need to do at the state level is push for research and development to make electric heating and electric power an economical and available option for households and businesses of all abilities. And let's leave fossil fuel in the history books in the near future.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for the three of you for those. Another issue that has come up this past year here in Holyoke, many of the communities in the eastern part of the state have the Dover Amendment 40A, and they were wondering what your feelings are on working here with people in Holyoke to limit the nonprofit and not-for-profit property takings within the city. And how would you propose to handle this? And would you propose pilots? And we're going to start with David Bartley. I'm sorry, I should have said that, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, I would propose taxing them. I would propose removing any exemptions that they have at the state level. What a phony bunch that's going in over at 11 Yale Street. I mean, they're backing their way in, and the little carrot that they hold out, here you go, taxpayer. Here, we'll pay the property taxes for the next 10 years. We're not going to say beyond that. That's a little carrot. Meanwhile, we're going to have a House bill with a very let's put a population that should not be at 11 Yale Street. And Holyoke is a loving, caring, giving, generous community. I have said it on the floor. One of the first speeches I gave on the floor, and Joe McGivern to this day is still trying to get the wax out of his ears for me yelling for 25 minutes. It's how Holyoke, number 2 in the Commonwealth in terms of low-income housing. Number 2. You want to know number 1 is? It's Aquina, formerly known as Gay Head. They had to change their name for some reason. Town of Aquina. Where's that located? That's on Martha's Vineyard. Martha's Vineyard, apparently they have some federal Indian reservations, and consequently they're number 1 in low-income housing. Holyoke is number 2 per capita. Holyoke does its part. Holyoke has always done its part. There's got to be a point, Helene, where and Andréa and my friends, that Holyoke can give no more, or if we're not going to be able, if we can't give, we're at least going to get, and no more freebies. So the exemptions have to go away, and this boondoggle 11 Yale Street has to end now.
Thank you. And Mr. Beaudry. And you're muted. There, thank you.
So I agree that Holyoke for too long has done more than its fair share in terms of supporting some of the Bay State's most vulnerable individuals and families. Report after report that comes out now clearly states that stacking poverty and other challenges on top of each other only self-perpetuates itself. And so I think we need to think very hard about deploying state law in a way that is a detriment to our local community, a community that, again, once an individual or family falls below a certain income level, the housing choices through this valley are very limited. And the communities in which they end up heading, Holyoke, Chicopee, Springfield, West Springfield, our school districts struggle to keep up and educate students with challenges while we have a diminished tax base. And so I want to make sure that I'm clear. I want to provide the necessary supports and resources for any individual who's struggling with mental health or substance use disorder. I am very troubled to use those resources in a way that diminishes the property values of our neighborhoods at a time when our tax base is really on the ropes and we're not seeing the type of support we need from state government. So something does have to give here. And I'm proud of being from Holyoke and what we provide for anyone who needs it. But we need help too.
Thank you. And Pat Duffy.
So going back to the Dover Amendment, which gives this sort of broad definition of educational programs, It has been used to set up programming for group homes. Now, many group homes provide incredibly important services. I mean, we live in a time, even before the pandemic, when folks were suffering from emotional, physical disabilities, and group homes, studies show they're a really valuable way to give people independence and help them move forward. Now, do I think that the definition of educational facility is too broad? I do. Do I agree there should be pilot programs or taxation? Absolutely. Why should these homes be removed from the tax rolls? Carlos Gonzalez in Springfield is working on legislation around maybe setting caps. So let's look at that. Absolutely. Yeah, I've met with the residents on Yale Street, and I feel their fears. They're talking about their homes, which is a huge investment. So moving forward, I want to be part of any solution if the situation becomes untenable. There you go.
Okay, thank you. And Andréa, it's to you now.
What efforts would you take to clean up the city's trash and litter problem in order to help the overall appearance and ultimately make it a more appealing city to visitors, potential new business owners, and residents? We'll start this question with Pat Beaudry.
Sure. I think first and foremost, we need to expand the bottle bill to include nips. We know that there's a 5-cent deposit on carbonated beverage cans, and we know that you don't see a lot of Coca-Cola or beer cans on the ground because there are people who see the value in collecting them, or they're in circumstances where they need that revenue, and they go out, they pick them up, they turn them in, and they're off our streets. So how do we attach deposits to other frequently littered goods to put the onus on either the purchaser to recycle them and get their deposit back, or to have other people in the community who have an incentive to do so? I think that's a big part of it. You can't legislate human behavior, though. And I think that the litter issue is part of a larger blight issue we have in the city. We are in a weak real estate market in many of our neighborhoods, and we know that we have zombie properties that are in the long, slow foreclosure process. They're vacant, they're falling into disrepair, and it only takes one to take down a whole street, and we lose that sense of community and pride. And so I want to make sure that the Neighborhood Stabilization Act, which was introduced, we actually don't know what's going to be passed at the end of the session because they're still debating now. But any tools that we can give to the city so that they're able to ensure that there are good, vibrant, clean, safe communities, I think that takes care of a lot of those litter issues when you think of the neighborhoods that aren't struggling with blight and the lack of litter on their sidewalks now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's fine. Next, Pat Duffy, please.
Yeah, I think Mr. Beaudry hit on a lot of it. We have to tackle recycling, this false and inflated market that supposedly China was going to buy all of our recycling for years. I mean, it was never realistic. It was never environmentally sound, and that market has collapsed, really, hitting municipalities hard. So expanding the bottle bill, incentivizing recycling, extended producer responsibility, where we offer both a carrot and a stick, where producers become responsible for what happens to their goods when they're done, and we incentivize the production of products that can be reused. Yes, and tools to support urban neighborhoods and fight blight, absolutely. We've got a great center city plan that the Redevelopment Authority has been putting together, working on it slowly, and we're seeing real progress in South Holyoke. Yes.
Thank you. And Mr. Bartley?
trash and litter does one thing. It belittles all of us. That's it. It's an embarrassment. And this is this is a pretty good jumping off part for me to give another plug for just how important it is to get good people to run for city council and to be a part of the ground game. Instead of aspirational things and what I heard, I didn't hear one concrete thing from the state rep's aide that anything's happened relative to this. Well, let me give you two concrete things that I did as a lowly Ward 3 city councilor to help this. One is we expanded our recycling program at Holyoke because we used to get money from the MRF, and back when you could market to China, but we used to get thousands of dollars from the MRF. The mayor would put it always in the general fund and blow it. Well, we at City Council changed that. Myself, Councilor Bresnan, I got to give Councilor McGee some credit too. We changed it, and we got that money go direct into expanding recycling. Bingo. That's how you can help. Here's another one. We got a tree nursery. Councilor Soto and myself, we started a tree nursery. Then we have one on Berkshire Avenue. We planted hundreds of trees. On top of that, we got DCR to come in to plant thousands of trees throughout Holyoke. That makes Holyoke a greener city and a healthier city. Third one is Casella, which is something we've helped expand. They are a major transport site for recycling and other materials. They are a huge resource and a job creator on Main Street. You should check them out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is changing things up just a little bit, different kind of question. During this time of pandemic, which has caused unprecedented extenuating circumstances in relationship to the tax revenue receipts, they're going to be far less than expected. What programs do you feel the state could, should, and would postpone or curtail until businesses and families in the community of Holyoke can become whole and have less tax indebtedness coming out of this coronavirus?
Well, it's a multi-layered question because that is why the state at this time has just put forward incremental budgets. So, and first things first, our public schools, it's not to the extent of the Student Opportunity Act, but there's been at least level funding plus. Chapter 90, other local aid, level funding plus. So, you know, yeah, there's a lot of state programs that are incredibly valuable, and it's going to require a lot of very careful evaluation. A lot of that is happening right now. The current state budget goes through the end of October, so we're already gearing up on looking at different programs. The second part of this question is that the federal government has to kick in. That is their role. I mean, we as a state have to balance our budget. The federal government in crises past has stepped in with stimulus, and it's crucial. It's crucial. It happened in 2008. It happened after World War II. It happened during the Great Depression. We need the resources. Individual people need the resources. So they need to get back to Washington, and this recess needs to end.
David Bartley?
Thank you. I'm not saying you're wrong, Helene. I'm just saying that in Commonwealth Magazine last week, they referenced how year-over-year revenue from July 20 to July 19 is up $88 million in the Commonwealth. And that just speaks volumes about the resiliency of the Massachusetts economy, but it's not, it doesn't protect, it's not protected from everything. It's protected from, again, foolhardy taxes, punishing small businesses, which we do constantly with all these minuscule taxes, and we put a chokehold on small businesses, and that's all we do. I heard from one of my competitors last week, the state rep's aide, carte blanche, go ahead, add to the payroll tax. Well, let me say something. I pay a payroll tax. I'm a self-employed person. I pay tax every month. You just don't say, well, we'll just add it to the payroll tax and, wash our hands of it. That is the kind of thinking that chokes an economy. And I'm not being mean. I apologize if I sound mean. So let me. The other thing we referenced was the ridiculous exemptions that are given to nonprofits that come in and take private homes off the market. These nonprofits are backed by million-dollar corporations. So don't put out the vulnerable population as the example. Oh, the little person we're trying to help. No, it's trying to take money out of the pocket of the mega rich down in Boston, other places. They got to start paying their fair share. Thank you.
And to you, Mr. Beaudry, the same question.
Thank you. So I'm a bit of a student of economics, and one of the things I've learned in my studies is that you don't cut public spending when you're in recession. You don't need less construction workers working on capital projects. You don't need less support in our schools for the social emotional toll that this pandemic has taken on our students and their families. You don't cut services that help people who are struggling with mental health and substance use disorders during this time of crisis. That's not how we get out of it. And it only shoots ourselves in the foot. I think that, again, we need to really think about who's making a profit at this moment of time, who's struggling, and understand how to recalibrate our revenue system. A bold proposal. I know that the millionaire's tax is politically expedient and it's gained popularity, but it only addresses one piece of the puzzle. It doesn't provide relief for the individuals and small businesses that need that relief, at least right now. And so I think about how we've moved from goods to services, particularly online services, and how we need to be taxing things like Netflix and other online services that currently are not collecting revenue, that are in high demand, particularly during a pandemic, that we can use to stabilize our funds and make sure that we're still putting boots on the ground and putting paychecks in Bay Staters' pockets during this.
Thank you.
All right, Andréa? Next question. How will you address the transportation needs, which have been a long outstanding problem in Holyoke as well as Western Mass? This question first goes to Councilman Bartley.
Better wake up. Sorry about that. I apologize. I forgot the order. Transportation needs. We have tried to address it. And so the first thing we tried to do is understand it. And one of the great things we had is one of the recent reasons I had Pat came into City Council along with his boss, Tim Brennan, along with the director of the PBTA. We want to understand from their perspective what is happening in the transportation industry. And we were encouraged by it, but we realized there's a need for more. And especially the PBTA, my goodness, they are really reliant upon Commonwealth dollars. But we, as a city and as an economy, we rely on the PBTA. I don't know if you've ever noticed that P20 bus that goes by my office 50 times a day is pretty full and is bringing people to Kmart Plaza and to Stop and Shop and to the mall and, of course, back downtown to the transportation center. I want to increase that to the extent we can. Another thing I referenced in the debate, we really should think hard and long about voting out the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And somebody who can direct millions and has direct millions and billions of dollars to build infrastructure, to get our rail system up and running so that we can actually use our beautiful train station for more daily activity instead of once or twice or 3 times a day. Regular commuting. If we can do that and, of course, get the Chapter 90 up to $200 million mark, I think we're going to have some great success in Holyoke because, as I said, 6 major highways go through Holyoke. We should do better as a Commonwealth.
Thank you. This question will go next to Mr. Beaudry.
Sure. So thank you, Councilor Bartley, for your partnership on that issue, PBTA. It's one that I'm really familiar with. Again, working at the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, I've worked with a statewide organization for years now to really understand what's going on with regional transit authority funding across the Commonwealth. Most people don't know this, but PBTA is the only other Tier 1 regional transit authority in the Commonwealth other than the MBTA. We serve a passenger ship that is primarily dependent on that 40-foot bus to pick them up and get them where they need to go, whether it's work or school or healthcare or other important destinations. So we need to make sure that that is actually increased. It's very similar to what I was talking about earlier with cutting spending during a recession. The more you cut a regional transit authority, the less people use it, the more it falls into a downward spiral. So we want to stop that and make sure that we're not penalizing them for costs that are out of their control, like fuel. The other piece I think that I hear often when I'm knocking doors and making phone calls is Route 5 on the south side is looking sharp these days, fresh new yellow paint up the middle. But north side Route 5 is a mess, and people have to swerve over the lines to avoid large holes and not damage their vehicles and get in accidents. So I agree, we need to get more funding for that. And that would be a top priority of mine. On the rail piece, I really think that the rail is going to be the future as people are, we've accelerated work from home. I agree with Senator Lesser out of Springfield Long Meadow. We need to connect with rail to the mega regions and those economic opportunities to give people quality of life here in Holyoke, where they can actually access jobs.
Your time is up, Mr. Beaudry. Thank you.
Ms. Duffy, question
So,
for you now.
so yeah, public transportation is where it's at. It's about equity issues. It's about the environment. So absolutely, supporting regional transit authorities, supporting the PVTA is crucial. That investment just pays over and over again, because we're talking about, I think it's our biggest disadvantage with the eastern part of the state. If you live in the Boston metro area, you don't have to have a car. You have to have a car out here. And many people don't and are reliant on bus lines that service that we're cutting the schedules back. So let's invest, and let's invest green. The Smitty Pignatelli has a proposal for a local option tax. And yes, I am for healthcare and for good public transportation, willing to talk about small tax increases, where the local municipality can decide that they want to pay more to support public transportation, and let's make it green. Let's move more into electric cars. It's definitely the future, and I'm willing to fight hard and make the argument for more revenues to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I see that time is running here. I'm going to skip to a question. What do you feel is the most pressing problem that you can address in Holyoke today? And we're going to start with, let's see, I'm sorry, Mr. Beaudry.
Sure. I've made no bones about it. I think we live and die by our schools, and we live and die by our downtown, and they're all connected. We need to provide a public education in this community that attracts young families and keeps us vibrant, and provides a workforce that firms are excited to relocate or expand here and hire. It impacts seniors who don't have children in the public schools anymore, who want to downsize and sell their home. It's going to impact what they can sell their homes for in the future. And so I really think there's such a connectivity between our education and our economy here. And I think so much about how the Student Opportunity Act has tens of millions of dollars potentially for our city. But we know that, again, in the face of the recession, we're going to see the state backpedal and break promises that they just made. And that's unacceptable. The kids who are in fourth grade this year don't get a second fourth grade. And we need to make sure that these kids are having their needs met, and that every single family in this city is proud to send their kids here, to locate here. And again, I've mentioned this on other forums. I think I have earlier today. We're a city of 40,000 sitting in the shell of what was 60,000. We can grow, and we must grow to support this community. And so I'm really excited to work on the schools issue, to work on stuff like neighborhood stabilization, to make sure that our strong historic neighborhoods stay that way. They're safe, they're healthy, they're vibrant. And I really am running as the quality of life candidate in this race.
And the same question to you, Pat Duffy.
Well, I absolutely agree that public education it's my biggest priority. It's the voters' biggest priority. It's where this diverse city, it's where we all come together. Besides the training and education that it provides. So all the way from early ed, all the way up to and including Holyoke Community College, which is an economic linchpin, providing us with our workforce training. Do you know that if you are taking workforce training classes, they're non-credit classes, and the Pell Grants won't pay for that? So Holyoke Community College and individual students are pursued grants, et cetera, to try and support students taking those workforce training classes. Let's make that a line item. Let's make that something that they can count on every year. So I think supporting our public schools across the ages that's my top priority.
Very good. And David Bartley.
Thank you. Before I answer the question, I just want to thank my friend Pat B again for the shout out, because the part that's been paved is what he didn't say, because you may not know it, but that's not a slight. That's Ward 3. That's Elmwood. And there's a reason it got paved. It doesn't happen by magic. It happens by local elected officials paying attention and advocating. That's why the Ward 3 has been resurfaced quite a bit. And thank you for noticing. The number one problem, Helene, Andréa, I said it in multiple forums, I said it in multiple speeches, there is a glaring lack of leadership in the city of Holyoke. We have an absentee chief executive. He hasn't walked into City Hall for any period of time in over a year or longer. We have municipal leaders, civic leaders that make handsome salaries, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 a year, right here in Holyoke, Mass. At 5 o'clock, they check out, turn around, drive their car to the pretty little towns with the pretty little people that they already know. They don't care. We need those jobs here. We need the leaders to live here, work here, and be damn proud they're from Holyoke, like I am, and I know the two Pats are. That, we start there, start with the state reps race. We'll turn around next year in the mayor's office, and I think we're off to the races. We're going to be in good shape.
Thank you. And at this point, just because of the clock ticking by, we're going to go into the timing for the three of you to wrap up with your closing statements. And again, you have two minutes for this, and we'll do this in alpha order. So we will start with David Bartley.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate everybody sticking around to hear the closing argument. In the opening salvo, I got to thank my supporters. I want to now thank the two Pats. They're kind, gentle, serious people, and they deserve your consideration. I want to thank each of the Holyokers watching tonight and have voted for me in multiple elections over multiple years. It's been an honor to serve. I love serving. I am passionate about the city of Holyoke. I am a passionate advocate. Sometimes I raise my voice a little too much, but I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I just get excited about things. And so I want you to know that I'm excited about the city of Holyoke. Let me kind of conclude this way. In July of 17, we lost a great friend of our family, Dr. Francis M. Baker. I cannot believe it's been 3 years since he passed away. We never thought he would die. He was always the MC at my fundraiser. And he said to me after one of my fundraisers, you know, Bartley, I appreciate something you said. I said, geez, Doc, what's that? And what I said to the gathered audience is this: you may not always be thinking about me when I'm in City Hall, but I'm going to be thinking about you because I care. If I get elected in this race, I'm going to go to Boston. I'm not going to be bringing my resume and passing it around looking for a job. I've got a job. I like my job. But my job down there is to serve you, the voters of Holyoke, the residents of Holyoke, the citizens of Holyoke, my friends in Holyoke, even my opponents, even the ankle biters. I represent all of them. I respect all of you. I think I can be a good advocate for the whole city. and I look forward to serving you. And I do ask for your consideration for mail-in voting, early voting, or voting at the primary September 1st. It's been an honor to serve, and it's been an honor to be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Mr. Beaudry.
Sure. I want to echo what Councilor Bartley just said about the respect that we've shared in this race. It's the last debate. Elbows got a little pointier tonight, but that's all right. I think they're all fair questions. And as a first-time candidate, this has been the honor of a lifetime to be able to stand before my hometown. You bare your soul when you run for office in your hometown. People know you. They know your character. They know your mistakes. They know your accomplishments. This is a great community to live in, and its failure is simply not an option for me. As I go door to door with social distance practices and we hit the phones, one of the themes I continue to hear, other than schools, the economy, healthcare, is a desire for a fresh set of eyes on our persistent problems and some new blood in our political leadership. While again, I have the utmost respect for the contributions that both Councilor Bartley and Pat Duffy have made this community, they have been part of the political leadership of this city for many, many years. And the people of Holyoke are ready for some change. And so I'll leave it at this. You give me your support on September 1st or before by mail or early voting. I promise you, I will give you 2 years of representation on Beacon Hill you can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now to you, Pat Duffy.
So yes, thanks to everyone here, the Taxpayers Association, the Greater Chamber, and yes, my two opponents. I think it's great that things got a little passionate because we all care so much. But what we have all talked about is the issues, and I'm really grateful for that. We've got just under 2 weeks to go, but it's been a good campaign. I will say there's one thing that left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth, and that has been the either overt or underlying assertion that we have not been well represented in the State House over the past 8 years. Like, let's all get on the same page. Whichever one of us gets this job has big shoes to fill. Aaron Vega is trusted and respected here in Holyoke. He's a leader in the State House, especially on issues around youth. So I just need to get that off my chest. So for myself, what I brought to the job is long-standing relationships in the labor movement, in community, serving on the board of Nueva Esperanza, from the Redevelopment Authority. So my support is something that I've earned myself through my work and the things that I say and do and the way people can count on me. And so for these reasons, I ask you, Holyoke, the city that I love and have loved working with everybody all over the city, I ask you for your vote on or before September 1st.
Thank you. Thank you to the three of you. Well, folks, thank you for tuning in this evening, and a big round of applause for our three candidates, even if they can't hear us. It's hard to put your own proverbial hat in the ring. And thank you also to Andréa for her help and trust in putting this debate together. This is her first big venture in Holyoke as the new executive director at the Chamber. Thank you to everyone. I'm sure tonight's round of questions and answers has given everyone something to think about. The state rep's position is multifaceted. Each one of our candidates is willing to step up and to do the job. Now you, the voter, need to make your educated decisions. During these troubling times, it has been far more complicated for us to bring together a debate for our community. And I thank very much those who have been so helpful, including the three candidates, the Greater Holyoke Chamber of Commerce, Scott McPherson from Holyoke Media, and the Board of Directors of the Holyoke Taxpayers Association. And thank you to you, the viewers who have tuned in tonight. Now it's your turn. That primary election is coming up September 1st. You can vote at the polls, you can do early voting at City Hall, or you can use mail-in ballots. Andréa, Marion, and I hope that this has been helpful for all. We wish you a very good evening. Be well, be safe, and good night. Thank you.